You're watching the number one podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, and I'm your host, Jean Paul Leek, and this is Rope Break. Family, here we are, like always, Thursday morning, and it's time for AEW Dynamite Review Beach Break. And this was, like, I gotta say, a pretty good show, overall. Nothing real, nothing real bad to complain about here, I thought. I mean, of course, there's the AEW stuff that we always nitpick, but I mean, this was a really enjoyable episode, I thought. And, a big surprise at the end, I thought was really cool. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out in the future. And, just pretty much good action, good matches, I thought, throughout the whole show. So, let's get into it. But before we do, make sure you check out NXT. We reviewed that show last night, like we always do, with Edge being there and stuff, just leading to Vengeance Day. I believe February, was it 14th, 13th, something like that. So really looking forward to that. Check out that review. And of course, check out Monday Night Raw review with yours truly. So let's begin. So this starts off with the tag team battle royal to determine the number one contenders, for the AEW tag team champions, the Young Bucks at Revolution. So the main person who really got an entrance, I would say, is like they started off, you saw Jungle Boy, he had his entrance, Tarzan Boy, all that, legit stuff. Then the Acclaimed, or then Jericho and the Inner Circle came out, but the Acclaimed cut them off. They started rapping. Not a fan of, I like rap, but I'm not a fan of them rapping. Just, I know that's their gimmick, so they're going to keep doing it, but they're not very good, or at least not to me anyway. And then the Young Bucks came out and they started just super kicking everybody. And it was just like mass chaos. But eventually this thing started and, they were all going in it. And all the teams, it was Top Flight, the Young Bucks, Jurassic Express, two teams from the Dark Order, because FTR was they were kicked out for what they did at the end of the match last week with Jungle Boy, cutting Luchasaurus's horns off. So they were barred, banned, whatever, taken out of this battle royal essentially, and replaced with John Silver and Alex Reynolds. So then we also had Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, Santana and Ortiz, Sammy and Hager, Chris Jericho, MJF. Who else was in there? There, obviously Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus. There was a good amount of teams in here. And this wasn't bad. I mean, it was a battle royal. You know what I mean? So it's hard to be like, oh, battle royals are almost never like good matches, so to speak. But I mean, with the winner of this, it was, I guess, the right choice. I really don't know, because I really, none of the tag teams in this to me are like, oh, okay, I want to see them win. And even if they do win, none of the teams in here struck me as a team that was going to beat the Young Bucks at Revolution. I feel, they're the tag champs. They've waited a year to put the belts on themselves. So they're going to want to have a legit title reign. I'm not going to say they're going to hold it for 6 years or anything, ridiculous, but they're going to want to have a legit reign. I don't see them losing at Revolution. But to kind of skip to the end of this thing, after a good amount of people were eliminated, MJF, he eliminates Nick Jackson. And the one thing I do like about this is it was just, it was like almost double elimination, I guess you would call it. So Matt Jackson got eliminated early on, but Nick Jackson was still in it, like how they did it last Battle Royal, when Nick Jackson was eliminated and then Matt Jackson pretty much ran the whole thing and, won it for them to get their title shot. So like I said, MJF eliminates Nick Jackson. Jericho and MJF, they do the Young Bucks pose. I popped for that. Inner Circle then strategize in the corner. The final 6 face off, and that was MJF, Jericho, and Sammy. And it was a member from Top Flight, a member from Acclaimed, and Jungle Boy. I believe it was the older brother from Top Flight. From Acclaimed, don't ask me to remember their names, because this is only like their second appearance on Dynamite that I can remember. They're pretty much like AEW Dark, main eventers over there. So all 3 of the Inner Circle members, they try to push out Jungle Boy, but he hangs on. Wardlow's on the outside. MJF finally eliminates Jungle Boy and then faces off with Sammy. Max Caster, there you go, it was Max Caster for the Acclaimed. He attacks both of them. Sammy super kicks Caster, but MJF gets thrown out by Caster. And then Sammy, Jericho, and Martin are the final 3. So there you go, it was Martin from Top Flight. And then the Inner Circle, they double team him. Martin hits a double DDT. Martin throws out Sammy, but he skins the cat. Jericho inadvertently eliminates Sammy. and then he hits the Judas effect on Martin to eliminate him. So I do like how they played up Top Flight. They were the team that the Young Bucks had high prospects for. They're like, this team's really good. They're young. They brought them in. And I like how it was almost like the most, green young team, and then versus like pretty much the oldest guy in this thing. So I kind of like that dynamic. Jericho, is good when he was on the apron. He hit the Judas effect, knocked him right off. So really good stuff there. And we have Chris Jericho and MJF challenging for the Young Bucks at Revolution. And I could see something, this will be the breakup. I see them losing. I see maybe Sammy, somehow getting involved, Wardlow, something. Not like they caused them the match, but just to really, put that crack and that fracture in the inner circle. And this is what breaks them up, because it is reaching a boiling point. But I mean, decent action to start it. Like I said, battle royals are never, oh, this is a classic match or anything, but good showing for the start of it. And then the inner circle, they celebrate in the ring. And like I said, they will face the Young Bucks. So commentary runs down the card for tonight. And up next is Darby Allin and Sting. And then we get a special look at Jade Cargill, kind of just, showcasing. She's like working out and all that stuff. And it was cool. But it was like AEW, they do this weird thing where they have somebody on TV and they talk and all this stuff. And then they're like, let's show you the hype package. When WWE would do that for like whoever. They would show you the package, like, oh, or like, the video promo, whatever. And it would be like, that's who, this is who's coming, in 2 weeks, we'll see this person. They don't have them on TV and then show you, the video package. So I didn't understand that. But I mean, hey, she looks good, working out. She looks strong. She looks tough. So, we'll see. But they didn't show any of her, hitting wrestling moves or hitting the ropes or anything like that. It was all just working out in the gym. Anybody can lift, weights, but can you actually wrestle? That's the question. So then after we come back from the commercial break, Tony Schiavone introduces Darby Allin. Tony introduces Sting as well. Taz interrupts before they can say anything. And he says that they aren't allowed inside the building because they are being punished for attacking the security last week. And he says they'll be watching next week when Darby defends the TNT title against Joey Janela. And a quick off topic, I'm sure he has fans, probably, 10, 15 fans, but why does Joey Janela get a title shot against Kenny Omega a couple weeks ago? And he does absolutely nothing. He doesn't rank. He's not a good wrestler. And now he gets a title shot against Darby Allin. I mean, clearly he's going to lose. So it's like, it doesn't matter, but it does matter because you're trying to keep, they're like, oh, we're the real sports feel. We have the power rankings and everything, I don't get it. I really don't get why you're putting him. Yeah, they have chemistry. They're both kind of, are not chemistry, history. They're both kind of risky, with their wrestling style and all that. But to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, why not, at least put somebody who's kind of legit. And then, because, Team Taz is going to get involved anyway. So it wouldn't hurt the person who he's in there with. Why feature Joey Janela? Feature somebody else. But then Stark says that he doesn't think Sting is still the icon, and he says Darby will need all the luck he can get. So then Sting says that he'll be there next week to make sure that it's a one-on-one match, and he won't let Team Taz get involved. And he says Starks needs to take a closer look if he doesn't see the icon anymore. Then he has a stare down with the camera. So pretty good stuff, kind of hyping that match. Just, hey, Sting doesn't got it no more. Sting's bullshit. 61-year-old man, like, get out of here. And then, he kind of fires back. And, a lot of people say Sting is not a very good promo, but I mean, I think he does enough. People said the same thing about Bret Hart, but, Sting, I think he does enough. He has the emotion. He has that legitness. So I'm looking forward to this. And Darby Allin versus Joey Janela, not really, but hey, if it's on the path to lead us to the Street Fighter Revolution, I guess we got to deal with it. Then we get a video package of Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. Britt Baker enters and Thunder Rosa runs down and attacks Rebel, before this thing could get underway. And this was the best match of the entire night for me. The main event wasn't bad at all. That was a close second. But this, to me, I mean, they gave these women a lot of time to wrestle. And, they put on a clinic, and no pun intended, because Dr. Britt Baker, a clinic or anything. But, this is the really good match. And, Reba Rebel, I'm like them, what the hell is her name? But she got involved a little bit, but it didn't hurt the match. It would be like, oh, she would, try to distract Thunder Rosa or do this, but then Rosa would chase her off and knock her down or kick her ass or whatever. But it wasn't like a deciding factor. I mean, it was at the end, but it wasn't like, oh, Thunder Rosa was just getting dominated this whole match. No, it was very even, I thought. And even Thunder Rosa was, she was actually dominating and looking strong at certain parts, even with Reba there. So, this was really good. Like I said, definitely my favorite match of the night. And to end this thing, Baker goes for the lockjaw, but Rosa gets to the bottom rope. Baker hits a curb stomp for a 2 count and then a crucifix. Rosa reverses, Baker reverses, and then kind of a back and forth on the roll-up attempts and everything. Rosa with a back body slam and then a Death Valley driver for a near fall. Then Rosa goes for an arm submission, but Rebel rips off the turnbuckle, and then they sold it as it was to distract the referee, which it did make her release the hold because she's like, hey, what the hell's going on here? But it was really just to set up the end because then Baker gets a roll up for a near fall, and then Baker's in the corner, and then she sent Thunder Rosa face first into the exposed turnbuckle, and then Thunder Rosa is pretty much knocked out from that. And then she goes for the lockjaw, but by the time she even gets it in, the ref is like, no, she's completely out, rings the bell. And I like how she didn't like really put the lockjaw in and keep doing it even though she was knocked out. Baker was like, I won this thing, legit, awesome, and that was the right woman. And I think, it adds a lot of momentum for her going into this 16-woman tournament to determine the number 1 contender, which I hope and I feel that Britt Baker should win. And then we get footage from last week. Tony interviews Paige and Matt Hardy, and Matt says that they would have good chemistry. Paige says that he knows Matt has an ulterior motive and he doesn't trust him. Matt convinces Paige to team up with him to avenge Chaos Project ruining Brody Lee Jr.'s birthday. He's like, hey, it'll get you, in the good graces, kind of like soften the blow from when you turn down the Dark Order. What do you say? So Hangman's like, you know what? One night? Okay, let's do this. And I mean, this was Hangman Adam Page, Matt Hardy versus Chaos Project. And they're like, oh, Matt Hardy's a veteran. Nobody can kind of, nobody really knows more than him. He won't make many mistakes. And then, of course, Excalibur's like, oh, well, Luther has a couple years on Matt Hardy. And that goes back to the old thing where it doesn't matter how many years you've been in the business. It's how good you are and how, how much you've learned. You could be in this business for 20 years. And if you don't, know and or learn shit, then, that's pretty much what you are, shit. And I'm not going to say that's what Luther is, but if the smell fits, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, this was okay because of, the babyface team. And this wasn't a very long match either, which definitely helped it. But at the end of this thing, Page tags in. He runs wild, dive on the outside to Luther, spine buster on Serpentico. Then Serpentico fights back before getting hit with an elbow. And then Luther, he misses the cannonball. Page hits a buckshot lariat, but Matt Hardy tags himself in to quickly cover and get the win. So there we see some kind of like, what's going on here? Maybe Page will do his own thing for a little bit. Big Money Matt will kind of keep, bothering him, annoying him. And then hopefully that's going to be the feud. And obviously Hangman is the one who needs to go over in that feud. So really good stuff. I like what they're doing with Hangman because he's featured on almost every show. They're keeping him there, keeping him warm. It's like, okay, you're upper mid card, you're not main event, because when you do get to the main event, hopefully that means him versus Omega 2, and he becomes AEW World Champion. Like I said, he's going to be the first one to kick out of the One-Winged Angel, and you heard it here, folks. So then we see a video package for the Women's Championship Tournament. Matches will take place in the U.S. and Japan. So like I said, we have 8 women from the United States, 8 women from Japan. Riho is actually in the United States bracket, so I guess she came over here. I don't know if the contract is done with Stardom and she's going to be working for AEW full-time. I'm not sure, and I almost can't believe I'm going to say it, but it is a breath of fresh air to see a different woman, wrestle besides the same, okay, like at least Riho, she might not look believable because she's literally as light as a feather and probably weighs, less than Leon Ruff does, but I mean, at least she kind of knows how to wrestle and does the moves, like unlike, a couple of women on these rosters, but legit Layla Hirsch is going to be in there. Who else? Serena Deeb, Thunder Rosa, Ty Conti, Anna Jay, Riho, Britt Baker. And then on the Japanese side, they have like Emi Sakura, I really haven't heard of half of the. Oh, Aja Kong's another one. Yuka Sakazaki, and then it's like 5 new ones. So I mean, that'll be cool to see some fresh faces. So it looks like it'll be one winner from the Japan side, one winner from the U.S. side, and then they'll face in the finals. So like I said, to me, it's gonna be Britt Baker. I hope the finals or the semifinals on the U.S. side is Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker again. I like to see that match a rematch. And, but I still feel Britt Baker needs to be the next AEW World Women's Champion. So then the wedding will be up next. But before we get to that, Marbez, he's backstage with Jericho and MJF. Jericho has a box, and they are celebrating the win from the Battle Royal. Sammy says that only Jericho and MJF are the number 1 contenders. And he says, why are they always, the collateral damage? Jericho runs after him, but MJF says it's time. He has a conversation with the rest of the inner circle. Wardlow kind of he tells the cameraman, kind of shoos him off, get out of here. And they close the door. So like I said, I think at Revolution, I don't see them winning. I see the inner circle breaking up, disbanding, which is the best thing for pretty much all of them, except Chris Jericho. I feel he's the only one who was really benefiting from all these guys. MJF, you took him from main event awesome heel, and he went down fast. I guess really Sammy Guevara was really the only one to benefit from this. You got to think, you start off, it's like, okay, this is pretty good, athletic. Is he a babyface? Is he heel? We don't know. Then he joined the inner circle, and his stock really rose, I've thought. So he's really going to be the one who I think when they break up, he's going to be the one who shoots off and does very well for himself, which I'm excited for. And, if you go back in the beginning of AEW, I was like, oh, I don't like this guy, but he's really grown on me. So they've really done good by Sammy Guevara. So I'm happy with that. So then we see Tony Schiavone. He interviews Kip Sabian backstage, congratulates him. Miro says that Chuck has never had a girlfriend. That was great because he's like, oh, Tony, look, you're married. Kip, you're about to be married. And he's like, oh, and Charles here. Yeah, he's never had a girlfriend his entire life. So that was really funny. I like that. Vicky Guerrero, she comes out. She says, hey, it's time for the wedding. So they're like, all right, let's all get ready. So then they go off, and James Mitchell, he's there, which is cool. He was with Impact doing all that stuff with that wedding. So now he's here for this wedding. Obviously, they have the working relationship. So that's really cool. And I'm sure he didn't sign a contract. That was probably just a one-off thing. Even if it was, it don't matter. It's always cool to see him there. Kip, Miro, Charles or Chuck, whatever, Vicky Guerrero, they enter the ring, shakes hands with Mitchell in the wedding. March chimes as Penelope, she enters, wearing a wedding dress. Jerry Lynn walks her down. I was like, is that her dad? Oh, no, it's Jerry Lynn. I was like, oh, hey, I'm cool for Jerry. So then Mitchell, he starts the proceedings, and he says that vows are sacred, and Kip says his vows, and Kip says that this was meant to be, says that he will cherish Ford forever. And he says that she's, she's a beautiful woman on the inside, and she's definitely super hot on the outside. And Penelope says that she loves Kip so much, and she says that he is the biggest, and that Kip interrupts her, and he's like, oh, hey, they don't all have to know that. And it's like, yeah, who knows what it is? Probably the biggest video game collection because he's, a big Twitch streamer, or maybe, it's a big something else, but who knows? I guess they want to leave it for mystery. Then Mitchell says that it's time for the rings. And Kip says, I do. Penelope says, I do. They put the rings on each other's hands. And then, of course, he goes through the whole thing. I love how he's like to have and to grope instead of to have and to hold. And he's like something, through kayfabe and whatever. I mean, Mitchell's great. The more I see of him, the better, if you're asking me. But almost sometimes I say too much of a good thing is too much. So I don't know. We'll see. But I always like seeing James Mitchell. And then he said, yeah, if anybody objects to this, Miro's like, no, no, no. I've been through a couple weddings. Trust me. This is always bullshit. We're not doing this. Just right to the end. So he's like, oh, I pronounce you man and wife. They kiss. They start making out. And then I love Excalibur's like, oh, honeymoon started early. Like sometimes Excalibur, I'm going to say, maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. Who knows? I'm a little more lenient. I don't know. But sometimes Excalibur, he hits the home runs with the one-liners. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. That was a good one. And then Miro, he does a toast, and he asks Charles to get the champagne, and he says he knows how it feels to be married. And he says that he is their wedding present because he's like, oh, I didn't get you anything because I am the present. I'm the best man. And he asks about the big present in the ring. Miro says that it's from Charles, and then he attacks the president, starts beating it up. he probably thought Orange Cassidy was in there. So he throws it out. He's like, none of this bullshit. He asks Charles to clean it up. And then, he goes back to his promo and he's like, what is love? And then the crowd starts, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me, and all that stuff. So then Miro's like, oh, I love that song. And he starts singing. And then while all this is going on, though, he actually gets his foot by Charles or Chuck. He, I guess chains his foot or, handcuffs it, foot cuffs it, whatever you want to call him, to the bottom rope. So he doesn't see this. And then pretty much, they go to get the cake, but Charles, he attacks Kip and Ford falls into the cake. And then, Miro goes to attack, and that's when he realizes that he's been handcuffed or foot cuffed or whatever, like I said, whatever you want to call it, in the corner there. And Kip accidentally hits Miro, and Miro looks like he's going to rip his head off. And he's like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Orange Cassidy, he pops out of the cake. He was actually in the cake, not in the present. And then Cassidy, he hits the beach break onto Kip. I guess that's where they got the name for this show, because Tony Khan is a huge mark for Orange Cassidy. So then Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy, they ruin the wedding. They celebrate. Miro and Ford look on. So you knew that's how the wedding was going to end. I won't be like, oh, this was a bullshit segment, same thing every time. I mean, it was a wedding. It was going to be a bullshit thing to begin with. I like the What Is Love from Miro and all that stuff. Oh, I love this song. Miro was good. Oh, like I said, all the one-liners and stuff, and this was good. If you expected this to be a good segment, I don't know what to tell you, as in like a good wrestling segment. I don't know what, like I said, it wasn't going to be anything like that. But sometimes you can put these little funny things in there, and it's good. And, now we're going to see a tag match, and hopefully Kip and Miro destroy them, because you got to keep Miro looking strong. And that's, hopefully that's what they do. So then the crew, they take down the wedding set while Ford and Miro, they're still in the ring. Miro shouts at people at ringside. Ford, she's upset. And then we go to Shaq. And this, to me, is the most bullshit feud pretty much at almost everything we're seeing on TV right now. And I actually got to say, it's not really anything that's Cody's fault, unless Cody's the one who's booking this week to week. Because, he did ruin the feud. Hey, you don't bang your wife without a condom on and try to put her in a feud and then be like, oh, she got pregnant. What the hell do you think was going to happen? So that was like, I guess that is Cody's fault. But everything else with this, when Shaq was a baby face and Brandy was a heel and then threw the water in his face, and then he's like, oh, no, I don't want to wrestle Cody. I don't want to do none of that. And then that happened. And, then we didn't hear from him forever. And then it was just Jade. And then Brandy's out because she's pregnant. And it's Red Velvet. And it's all this stuff. But now I guess I don't know what it is. Maybe Jade was convincing him, maybe behind the locker room, maybe in Shaq's a private, apartment bedroom. I don't know where Jade was convincing him. But Shaq is down for the match. He was on an Inside the NBA show. And he says he'll beat the hell out of Cody. He called him like, I forget what he called him, crybaby Cody or, something like that. And he's like, he's pretty much, I'll kick his ass. And all the other guys, they were like, oh, you're going to wrestle him? Like, he's a famous, in the famous wrestling family. They're like, you're going to wrestle? Like, they, you could tell like they were almost like trying to make it that they were presented seriously, but also, it's the same thing. They don't care. They act like wrestling is a fake sport. They're like, oh, we're basketball or we're football or we're baseball. We're a real sport. Wrestling ain't real. And it's like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to have this on your thing, present it that it's like an MMA fight. Cause if it was MMA, they'd probably be like, oh, MMA is so good. But wrestling is, let's just laugh at it. But so then he's like, oh, I'm going to demonstrate my black tornado move, which pretty much just like like a back elbow strike, almost like the Judas effect. And he said, but Shaq was serious about it. It was all the other jabronis that were being bullshit. Because Shaq is a big wrestling fan. He's not going to disrespect the industry like that. And the tag match will happen on March 3rd on Dynamite. So about a little less than a month away. So then Kingston, he makes his entrance, followed by Archer, and this is Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston lumberjack match. So this was okay. Kind of going off the match from last week. It was I like this feud just because of the intent. Eddie Kingston to me is good. You can put him in any feud, babyface or heel, he'll make it work. He'll give you 110% on his end. That's how I feel he treats everything he's involved in, and that's why everything he's been involved in since signing with this company, and from what I've seen him in NWA, is, he's made it feel legit. So that I like about Kingston. Archer, he wrestles like he should be the size of Ray Phoenix, but he also wrestles like a big, powerful guy. And I feel like, that kind of style doesn't get over. He was more over when he was the Murder Hawk. Now he's like, I don't know what he is. And you also don't know if he's a babyface or a heel. So that kind of makes it hard to get, behind Lance Archer. The biggest thing that I'm like, oh, this guy's legit is his look, like the long, like red dreads and all that stuff. And Jake, and him having Jake there. If he was just by himself, no Jake, the dreads wouldn't save it. Let me just say that. But this was pretty good. Again, the lumberjacks on the outside. I never liked that concept. To me, it's one of the stupidest matches ever. And that may be just how, the modern wrestling has perverted this match, where it's the lumberjacks don't just grab you and throw you back in the ring like they're supposed to. They will beat you up because it'll be, somebody who you just had a feud with, or somebody who hates you, or one of the lumberjacks is, involved with the other guy in the ring. So they'll beat up the other one. And it's like, it's just a whole convoluted mess. But at the end of this thing, Kingston, he directs the Lumberjacks to attack, but Jake Roberts, he attacks, he takes out, I believe it was Angelico. Kingston then hits an exploder suplex. Blade brings a table into the ring, and then Bear Bronson, he spears him through the table, and then and then Archer, he hits a right hand, and then he hits an Uranagi for a 2 count, clubbing lariat from Archer, and then he hits the blackout for the 3. So he wins this match. I assume this is going to be the end of the feud, because, we saw Kingston win last week. He cheated. Then it was like, all right, we need the last legit match. We're not going to see any of this bullshit, even though we did see a bunch of bullshit, like I said. But, Archer wins this. So hopefully this is the end of it, just because, this feud to me it's not off of anything. It's, they were barely playing up the whole battle royal thing, and that was so long ago. It's like, does anybody even care? Let's move Eddie Kingston on to something more legit, because like I said, everything he's in feels good, but this feud, he made the best of it. But to me, it wasn't anything, that you're going to go back and rewatch. And then we see FTR, and they're cutting a promo. Like I said, they got pretty much kicked out of this tournament, or this battle royal, excuse me, because of what they did to Luchasaurus. And Tully says that everybody's scared of them. And he goes through all the reasons that they've been cheated, and he says that all they want is a title shot. They're the best team in the whole freaking world, in the whole industry. All they want is a title shot. And pretty much it says it's bullshit. And Dak says that they aren't bad men. And he's like, but sometimes, good men have to do bad things. And as Dax is talking, you kind of hear this like kind of like muffled scream, like, it's like, what the hell's going on? The camera kind of like pans a little bit, and they pull up a chair. They have Marco Stunt. He's taped to a chair, tape over his mouth and everything. And Tully gets in his face. They all kind of like look at him, and it's just like, oh, this is like crazy. They're like, what the hell's going on here? So you see the feud with them and the Jurassic Express isn't over. And like I said, I feel that's going to be the real, maybe first risk that the Young Bucks have to losing their titles. Whoever comes out of that feud, I think, will be kind of promoted to #1 contender. And usually the way AEW books, it's probably going to be the baby faces, Jurassic Express. So, I mean, if Jurassic Express beats the Young Bucks and becomes tag team champions, I won't complain. But like I had said earlier, I don't see the team of Jericho and MJF beating them at Revolution. So then after that, we get Joey Janela. He says that Darby and him have a long history. Janela says that the stakes have never been higher, and then, pretty much for their match. A little hyping up. Like I said earlier, I don't really care for this. He's not going to win it. Team Taz is going to get involved and all that stuff. So, yeah. The match might not even happen. It might be Janela's music hits and they beat him up in the rampway. Who knows? Sunny Kiss will probably just be there twerking the whole time. So who the hell knows? So then we see Omega and the Good Brothers. They make their entrance with Don Callis. And then Callis joins the commentary team. Phoenix Pac enter through the crowd. And, of course, Moxley comes all the way, from 7 miles away. He walks there, hitchhikes, whatever he has to do. But he finally gets his way there, makes his way through the crowd, and they make their way to the ring. So we get the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega and the Impact Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers versus Moxley, Pac, and Ray Phoenix. And like I said, to me, this was a very close second to the best match of the night. still, in my opinion, the women's match was pretty much the best. And this was good, though. Pac, to me, was the star of this thing, along with Ray Phoenix. Moxley does what he does. The Good Brothers are, a pretty solid team. And Omega kind of shined more towards the end. I like that, though. He kind of let everybody else, do their thing. Hey, I'm the champ. I can just sit back, and at the end, that's when I'll showcase why I'm the champ. But he wasn't going to be like, oh, let me steal the show and let me look the most dominant, and all these 5 other guys look like a bunch of idiots. No. So that I did like. But like I said, Pac, to me, he was pretty much the star of this thing. And to skip a little bit towards the end, we get a Moxley, our triple suplex. Moxley interrupts the pinfall. Pac kicks out. Omega hits a V trigger and goes for the one-winged angel. Moxley and Phoenix attack Omega. Pac hits a suplex for a 2 count. And then Pac tags Moxley. Moxley gets a sleeper on Omega, and then they start, slugging it out. V trigger from Omega, huge clothesline in return. Phoenix then hits a hook kick and a huge suicide dive, which when he hit this dive that he took out, I believe it was Carl Anderson, he was going, this dude goes from 0 to like 100 miles an hour sprint in like a matter of 2 steps. He flew out of that ring like he was shot out of a gun, and, no pun intended, Good Brothers, Bullet Club, all that. And he hit Carl Anderson and almost flew into the crowd. Like, the fans, or like, the wrestlers that are standing there were probably, it was a good thing it was wrestlers, so they know how to take a hit, take a bump, because, if that was just crowd, that was going to get a little crazy. But then, Moxley and Phoenix, they attack Omega. Pac hits a suplex for a 2 count. Oh, no, there we go. It's 2 back in the notes. Excuse me. And then Omega, he hits a paradigm shift. Pac hits the 450. Anderson tags in and gets hit with a stun gun. Phoenix hits a moonsault press for a 2 count. Phoenix then gets hit with a spine buster, and the Good Brothers hit the Magic Killer for the win. So I do like that, how the Good Brothers actually got the pin, and they pinned Phoenix. You knew they weren't going to pin Moxley. He was safe from getting pinned. And Pac, I was thinking it was either going to be him or Phoenix to get pinned. Phoenix was the one. And I do like that. Like I said, Pac to me is the star. He was the best wrestler in this entire match. So I'm glad he was protected there as well. But, I kind of felt, I actually know, I'm going to be honest with you. I almost thought Jon Moxley was going to get a pin here, kind of get the heat. But, the angle and everything they had set up afterwards is obviously why he didn't. Because they all attack Phoenix after the match. Archer comes out to make the save, which I didn't really get. They're like, oh, he was working with Pac and then before. So who knows? Maybe Moxley's going to do his own thing. And then Archer will kind of, go into this role with Death Triangle until Penta comes back. Who knows? We'll see. To be honest, I really don't think they have any plans with Lance Archer. So they're kind of just like, we don't know what to do with him. So here he is. But he comes out to make the save, clears the ring. The Good Brothers clears the ring of the Good Brothers, Then the Good Brothers, they start fighting on the outside. Moxley and Omega are still in the ring, but a fan jumps in, hat, mask, and everything. Can't see who it is. He jumps in, he attacks Moxley, and then he pretty much takes his mask off, his hat, and it's Kenta from New Japan. Obviously, Moxley and Kenta had some feud. They had some stuff going on. And Kenta pretty much said, Moxley, are you going to come here? Or are you going to be bullshit? Or am I going to have to come to you? And a couple of people probably wrote that off thinking, oh, okay, he's just, talking shit, cutting the promo, getting the hyped up for eventually when Moxley goes back to Japan. But no, looks like AEW has a working relationship with New Japan. So this is really, really good. And it's going to do a lot because now you have New Japan, AEW, and Impact. They're going to combine their forces. This is like the Thanos gauntlet. You're getting all the Infinity Stones, and you're going to snap, and you're going to take down WWE. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but this is very good for wrestling. This will get, very good for New Japan, even though AEW's not, they're pulling in 600 to 700,000 viewers. Still, I'm sure a couple of them will translate over into New Japan if they're not watching already. So that's only good for New Japan. But Kenta, he comes in, he attacks Moxley, he hits the go to sleep, and then Omega smiles at Kenta, as he leaves the ring. And then the show ends with Omega celebrating. So, like I said, really good episode of Dynamite. The only complaints I have is just a couple usual spots, like, oh, let's do these dives where the other guy just stands there like, huh? and then they catch them. And I mean, Hangman and Matt Hardy versus Serpentico and our Chaos Project, you know, Serpentico and Luther. To me, that was like the bathroom break. That's when you go get your snacks. That's when you go take a shit, you know, whatever you got to do. But I mean, if it sets up Matt Hardy versus Hangman Adam Page, you know, then I guess I'm all right for it. And, you know, Joey Janela in that next week, you know, whatever. But, you know, we'll talk about that when we get there. But really solid episode of Dynamite. I enjoyed it. And it's interesting to see how the ratings are going to be next week. You know, is Kenta going to be a big ratings thing? Because I feel like this week, I would be surprised if NXT did not win with Edge being on the show. So, you know, but it's all the ratings reflect, you know, like the show that's on, you know, this week, the ratings won't reflect that because nobody knew Kenta was going to be there and stuff. So it'll be next week. You know, if Kenta is such a big draw and all this stuff, then we will see next weekend. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it. And guys, you know, I hope you enjoyed the review, and you know, please join us next time, you know, later today when we talk about our favorite show here on the channel, NXT UK. And also make sure, you know, you comment. What did you think of this? Did you like Beach Break more? Did you like NXT more with Edge being on the show? Tell us in the comments what you thought now that we have both reviews on the channel. And also, you know, make sure you hit like, subscribe, you know, share the video to any wrestling fans you have out there. You know, this channel is growing each and every day, and it's all because of views, and we greatly appreciate it. And make sure you also follow us, Rope Break, on Facebook, the OG Rope Break on Twitter, Original Rope Break on Instagram, and of course, like I had said, make sure you click subscribe on the #1 podcast in the YouTube wrestling community, the Original Rope Break. I've been your host, John Paul Leek, and we will see you next time.